Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to RaceRoom Ranked in 2024. We've already completed one championship, of course, the success of the BMW M2 CS Racing Cup, and that saw some fantastic action. We move into our second of three championships for Season 1 of 2024, and that is, of course, still keeping it in the BMW camp, but we move into a slightly more powerful, slightly faster machine in the form of the BMW M4 GT4 Trophy. Still some familiar faces, still some of the best drivers to go to, and some of the best circuits around the world as well. To talk you through rounds one action, it's myself, Zach Sweeney, and the smallest commentator known to man, Darragh Thacker, alongside me. In fact, he's this side of me there, you can see. He's here, and we're looking forward to bringing you some of the fantastic action here at the Hockenheimring.
Yes, the only action that's going on in Germany this evening here at the Hockenheimring. So this will be an interesting race. You said around the world, but really this calendar only has German tracks on it up to this point. We here at Hockenheim, and then next week we're at the Lausitzring, and then the Nordschleife to come. But then we don't know what will happen with the community vote. But with the Hockenheimring, I should say, you know, it's a classic circuit, isn't it? Yeah, wide in the opening couple of sectors, tightens up in the final sector, but always produces some good racing.
Yeah, it really does. Of course, Hockenheimring today on the 10th of July, one of the most insignificant dates of the year. Definitely is not Lewis McGlade's birthday, nor the site of the second semi-final game of the Euros. What even is the Euros, and who is Lewis McGlade? The Hockenheimring, though, is a circuit that we touched on before. You either love it or you hate it since its modern rendition. I've got to say, I absolutely love this circuit. Yeah, it's flat. Yeah, it's fairly basic and textbook, but the racing you can get around the Hockenheimring is second to none. And I think in these GT4s, with the fantastic drivers that we've got, we're in for two cracking races.
Yeah, we really are. This is going to be quite an interesting round, I think. Just to set the championship off, of course, Lausitzring, Nordschleife, very different circuits in their characteristics. And it's going to be very interesting to see how these drivers can adapt. Of course, we're in a different machinery, as you mentioned. So it's going to be interesting to see which of the drivers transfer across from the last championship and really try and hit that ground running, because we've got 40 minutes worth of racing tonight. But that second race really is a sprint.
Yeah, it really is. Race one, of course, 25 minutes in length. No pit stop needed. And then top five reverse of the finishing order of race one. That sets the grid for 15 minutes of race two. Sprints all the way through in race one, particularly in race two, and hopefully with a ton of action. Of course, we did touch on the fact that we've upgraded the machinery. We've gone from the BMW M2 to this beast, the BMW M4 GT4 Trophy, 550 brake horsepower, weighing just over a ton and a half, of course, the 2023 spec. 550 brake to 1,500 kilos. That's not a bad power to weight ratio. Couple that with a decent bit of aero, some racing tyres, decent brakes, and you've got a pretty quick car.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, again, as we move up the machinery, you know, we get a little bit faster, that speed starts to increase, especially when we go to the Hockenheimring with those heavier braking zones. I'm thinking, of course, down at the hairpin, but we also have places where you can try and make moves through faster parts of the racetrack. Coming out of the hairpin, of course, we've got that fast kink right before we get towards the Mercedes grandstands, but of course, at turn 1 and turn 2 as well, so it's going to be interesting. Of course, different machinery, bulking up a little bit, but these BMWs really do go well for racing, as we see week in, week out in the real-life racing sim world. That's not a sentence, but you get what I mean.
Motorsport, that's the one, Darragh. It's almost
There
as
we
if
go.
this is
That's
your
the word I'm
job,
looking
mate.
for.
That
Yeah,
is,
thank you.
it's fine. It is fine. It is no worries at all. There's a quick look as to the Hockenheimring in of itself. Of course, the modern rendition back in 2001, 4.5K, 17 corners, and of course, here in Hockenheim, Germany. Who'd have known? Turn 1, of course, very quick flick to the right, but pretty much 90 degrees in its angle. It's very fast, though. Got to be careful of that cut curb on the inside, and of course, track limits on the outside. Turn 2, decent overtaking opportunity, then that long run through the parabolica towards the Spitzker hairpin. That's where we expect to see the majority of our action. In towards, of course, the Mercedes Arena section. Let's not forget, if you're still side-by-side off the hairpin, you can definitely see some good side-by-side stuff through there. Then through the left, into the right, towards the Mobil 1 curve. That's where things get sketchy. This final sector of the circuit, the margin for error is so slim, the track is tight, it's twisty, and things can very quickly go very wrong.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously we saw that A great example of that back in 2018, of course, in the Formula One world where Vettel went off. So, and people say that cost him the championships. But it can be an important corner. And with only 4 rounds of the championship, it is really important to get those points on the board early. There's no real room for error. If you have a big incident, then you're going to find yourself with a lot to do with only 3 rounds to make up those points. Looking at the drivers here this evening, though, Enzo Filippo, Philip Dreiss at the top of the list. I mean, they're leading quite a strong group, aren't they? We've got the 2 Mackenbergs in there, Petter Daniel, Luca D'Amico, Naj, Orban. It is a very strong-looking field.
It really is. Of course, Filippo, Dreiss, both of them champions of RaceRoom ranked in the past. Dreiss, of course, taking both MX5 titles of last year. Enzo Filippo off the back, of course, of a sensational showing in the M2 CS Trophy, looking to back that up in the step above in the M4, but all the way down to Danko there, of course, on 1900 rating. Anything above 1900, and you are looking towards the top echelon. Of course, the rating system deducted by how quick you are, on your results, also divided by how clean you are, your off tracks, your spins, your contacts, those sorts of things. So both pace and cleanliness mashed together to get your overall rating, which means anyone out there, this isn't restricted to just the pros. If you put the work in, you get on RaceRoom, you get the work done in the ranked sessions, you can see yourself climbing through the stints of the RaceRoom Ranked Championship, and maybe one day we might see you into the top split. But there are splits happening all the way through, split 2, 3, 4, also across Europe, Oceania, and America, and we'll see them all collide in that grand finale in a few weeks' time at the Mystery Circuit, which hopefully will be a vote. So get yourself into the RaceRoom Rank Discord as well, just to make sure you've got your say in terms of what track we take to in 3 weeks' time. Towards the tail end of qualifying, though, and Philip Dreiss at the moment setting the pace, but I fear his qualifying session is done and dusted. Just over a 10th.5 clear of Enzo Filippo. In all fairness, it's fairly close, fairly competitive all the way through.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting just to keep an eye on all of these times as they come towards the end of the session, because there is just not much room for error. We're looking at 12 drivers within a second of the leader, and then there's 25 within 2. So there's not much in it here between quite a few of these guys. So going to be interesting just to keep an eye out for maybe a couple of others, see if they can jump up the order. Also a few names that we are not necessarily used to seeing near the top in the order. Mosin in 4th position, I should say, the German driver, doing a great job, maybe 5th down with Christian Orban going ahead of him, but also the likes of Heaven, Vicente, drivers that we don't usually see in the Ranked Championship. Good to see them doing quite well.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's nice to give these guys the platform to showcase their skills because, yeah, we have got a lot of familiar faces here on the RaceRoom platform, but we definitely do like the surprises of the odd curveball thrown. And I'm sure the drivers out there, the renowned veterans, also appreciate the challenge because they go toe-to-toe in so many different events. Obviously, the RaceRoom Ranked Championship, the racing ranked events, of course, most recently the Nürburgring 2.4 hour. We've gone to Dubai before, Spa, Bathurst, loads of different circuits where they've gone toe-to-toe and Titans have clashed. But also in the wider world of the RaceRoom community, it's a fantastic place. So even if it's not the RaceRoom ranked splits, there are definitely plenty of community servers that you can jump into, leagues that you can race in, and maybe you could see yourself toe-to-toe with the likes maybe of the Mackenberg brothers. Rokas to be moves his way up into 15th overall, just 1.2 seconds off the pole time. Have to say, 1.2 seconds at the Hockenheimring, covering the top 15. Pretty competitive qualifying session.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting just to see how this can change in the race, because there isn't much to split them at all, and especially with some parts of the circuit where you do get quite a lot of slipstream. I'm thinking up towards the hairpin, particularly, we're likely to see quite a bit of overtaking we should hopefully look forward to, but you never do know. But qualifying, no more times left to be set, and these are the results.
Philip Dreiss, double champion of 2023, takes pole position ahead, of course, of reigning champion Enzo Filippo. He'll keep him company on the front row. Julian Kunz ahead of Christian Orban, only half a second, covering the front 2 rows. Mosin behind that, and Marvin Mackenberg keeps him company on row 3, with his brother Sven right in behind in hot pursuit in P7. Balazs in P8, with Luca D'Amico and Mihai Noj completing the top 10. Behind that, Danko from Heaven, who's going to be looking to ascend his way into the top 10 ahead of Vicente. Pascal Jean-Pret, the top 7 rows, with Rokas to be a late charge into the top 15. He's joined, of course, by Melvin Brandt on row 8. Petter Daniel behind that. Then, of course, comes Thomas Gontier in P18. Behind that, of course, was Florian Volta, Lisa Marghitas, Daz Higgs, Blahau, Marchena, Sanchez, Gaspar Misch, who missed out on the top 25, Jason Underwood, Felix Fieser, Daniel Gra, the 29 car field that we've got. Pretty hefty grid, it's got to be honest. Turn 1's going to be interesting.
Yeah, 29 cars barreling down towards the opening corner, which really isn't the nicest turn one, is it? I mean, you get side-by-side action if you're brave, but at the same time, there really isn't much room. We're going to see drivers going wide, no doubt about that. And maybe one or two going around as well. So easy to make a big mistake around there. Going to be crucial for these guys to get that good launch off of the line, though, because they don't want to get caught up in any kind of incident that may unfold at the opening corner. But like you said, a couple of drivers further down than they might want. The likes of Gashwa Mish starting in 26th, will be mishing himself inside the top 10. But then others like Petter Daniel, 17th, they'll be looking to progress their way up the grid. And they won't have too long to do so in a 25-minute race.
Welcome, by the way, if this is your first time on the RaceRoom platform, welcome to the commentary team, where we spend the entire time being completely serious and definitely not trying to find as many ways to fit Gaspar mishing out on things as we can throughout the duration of the broadcast. We love a bit of fun, and hopefully these guys are going to have the best of fun out on circuit. Of course, 25 minutes of race 1 will then flip the top 5 finishers on the head and go again for 15 minutes of race 2 after a short break. We've got about a minute until race 1 gets itself underway. Dara, what are we expecting then? Who's coming out on top?
Oh, there's 29 drivers. It's going to be difficult to call really early on. I think really it's going to be those drivers that get through the opening corner well. I'm thinking more about looking at that crossover period between that the bottom end of the top 10 and not. The likes of Mihai Nej, who's right on the crossover. He was part of the Prodigy draft at the weekend, so he's been busy of late. That may be why he's down 11th, because we know how well he can drive. So that's definitely a name to look out for. But I think you're going to have to be hard-pressed to look past a couple of the drivers on the front row. And as I've checked to see the timing screens, they've disappeared. And I've forgotten who that is. Is that Filippo? Because I have...
It is, and Dries.
Yeah, Dries. Okay, I'm going to go with Filippo then. And you can go. Nice. You can go with someone else.
I'll go Philip Dries just to keep the front row continuity. It's fine. Dara Thacker does not know anything. 5 red lights on, by the way. 25 minutes of race 1 about to get itself underway for the BMW M4 GT4 Trophy. The second championship of Season 1 of 2024 gets underway, and Blahout straight out of the blocks with a drive-through penalty. Philip Dries leads Enzo Filipao and Julian Kuhn to the top 3 as their single file for the front 4 into turn 1. Side by side between Mosen and Mackenberg as they battle their way towards turn number 2. A clean start at the front, though, for the German. Our 2 champions leading the way. Bit of kerfuffle in the background, though, as 29 cars barrel their way towards turn 2.
Yeah, Dries with the perfect start. They're 3 wide through the second corner on the racetrack. This is Luca D'Amico trying to push his way past one of the Mackenberg brothers of Sven as they run together 6th and 7th, but they'll make their way towards the hairpin, just all over each other. 2, maybe 3 wide as we get our way into the braking zone. But Dries, he's scampered away at the front.
This is where things get interesting. Side by side for P2, Julian Kunze, Enzo Filipao doing battle. Who's going to be the braver one on the brakes? It's going to go the way of the Frenchman. Side by side there, I think Christian Orban and Mosen trying to capitalise. Filipao gets a poor run. Kunze finds his way through. I think they're 2 deep, 2 wide, 3 deep momentarily off the exit of the Spitzker hairpin. Filipao leads the drag race in towards the Mercedes Arena section. Meanwhile, Philip Dries able to get away.
Yeah, he's not really having to worry about anybody behind him at all. 1.5 seconds already as Filippo and Kunze try and sort themselves out. Mojin and Orban as well in 4th and 5th going side by side as they make their way back on towards the old circuit. Yellow flag detected too. That's Pascal Jean-Pret, the Swiss driver, dropping down the order along with Margitas as well. So 2 drivers coming a cropper only on the opening lap, but I really think that's low for the amount of nearly moments that we've had so far.
Yeah, exactly that. Side by side through the Sachs curve, by the way. That's Mosen doing battle with the Hungarian of Christian Orban through the left, then the right of these sweepers. That anti-cut curb on the inside can definitely throw the car a miss. Alex Mosen, the long way round in towards the Sud curve. The final corner on the circuit gets caught up on the curb on the exit, and Christian Orban finds his way through into 4th. But after all of that turmoil, Philip Dries nearly 2 seconds clear of the rest of the pack. Mosen under pressure as Mackenberg tries to launch an attack into the first corner. No way through for him. If this is what we're in for the next 23 minutes, Dara, bring it on.
Yeah, we're not going to have much time to breathe, really, are we? Because these guys are right on each other's tail. I mean, look at this as they come down towards turn 2. A couple of drivers dipping out of the train, but generally everybody nose to tail all the way through the field as they snake their way back down on towards the... Well, it's not really the straight, is it? It's the curved straight. That goes all the way around to the left before we get to the hairpin. But Danko here, the Hungarian driver, trying to get past his countryman Noj to get inside that all-important top 10. The likes of Nej have already got themselves into the top 8. Sven Mackenberg's had some issues dropping to 9th. But really, we can't call anything at all yet because of how close they are at the moment.
That's what we love about motor racing, isn't it? That uncertainty. Bit of kerfuffle, actually, a little bit further back. Bit of disagreements over the apex of the Spitzker hairpin. They're settling themselves down, though, at the front. The initial turmoil and the chaos has definitely calmed down ever so slightly. Philippau and Kunze, maybe they're just sort of a mutual agreement at this stage. Do not let Philip Dreiss get away, because he's one of those drivers you cannot give too much breathing room. Further back, of course, we've got a fight for P14. Heaven, Gontier, Brandt, all battling away for 14th place. Of course, these are going to be their starting positions, don't forget, for race 2 as well. Doing battle towards the Mobile 1 curve, that's always where it can get a little bit dicey, especially when you're a pack fighting towards the Sachs curve. It's asking for trouble, but I think they're just about going to keep it clean.
Yeah, they are, but Gontier is going to go down the inside of the Swede of Brandt, and he's going to make his way through to the Frenchman up into the top 15, which is nearly the top half. We've just got such a strong field that you'd argue the top 14 are with 28 in the field. I think at 29th of Margitas is out, but that really gives you a sense of how many drivers there are in this race. Inside line here for, I think that's Sven Mackenberg looking for the move, bouncing his way over the opening corner, and he's going to come under increased pressure from Noj, who makes the move, and also Danko might be looking for it on the run down towards turn 2. So Mackenberg, who was running just behind his brother in the top 7, is now looking outside the top 10.
That's how quickly the pendulum can swing and how the momentum can shift. Mihai Noj versus Balazs Naj as they battle out of turn 3 towards, of course, turn 4, which is technically 3 corners, because by the time you reach the hairpin, it's actually turn 6. In the slipstream, of course, the Hungarian on the back of Naj, who's making some good progress, actually, up 3 places from where he started. There's Mackenberg and D'Amico as well, battling away over 6th place. It is going to go the way of Mackenberg. Huge send on the brakes. I think that might well have been of Danko. Indeed, it was way too late in the brakes. Vicente as well, the Spaniard there in 12th place. This pack, coupled with the slipstream, it's asking for chaos into that hairpin.
Yeah, as they fight 3 wide into there, Filippo and Kunze, they are still battling away, aren't they? It's an increased gap that they're building to Christian Orban behind, but Dreiss is still 2 seconds in the lead. It's going to be very, very difficult to catch him, albeit we've only just about completed 5 minutes of this opening race. Kunze is looking fast, he always is on the RaceRoom platform, but Enzo Filippo is one of the other drivers that you'd expect to be right near the sharp end of the order. So good to see these guys fighting away at the front as they do start to, group out just a little bit as we go through the first few laps. But that's only at the front, because as they make their way through here, I mean, you can just see how close the mid-pack is.
Yeah, it really is, and that's the level of competition you have to rise to for RaceRoom Ranked. This is the quality of drivers that we've got in the top split, and that's extended pretty much universally throughout RaceRoom. It is such a strong platform, of course, so if it's something you've never tried it, of course, it's free to download. You get a decent chunk of free content, and even the paid content is not too bad at all. And there's plenty of deals as well, time to try out the content for free, so keep an eye out for that if you want to get yourself involved in RaceRoom, because it is so strong and the racing you get is absolutely impeccable. Just over 19 minutes left to go. The fight for second is yet to be decided, and I think actually they're going to try and decide it right now as Filipau tries to fend off Julian Kunze on home soil. Of course, it's a French sandwich with German bread here at the Hockenheimring. Julian Kunze looks to the inside. He is going to be slightly braver than Filipau on the brakes, aims himself at the apex. Filipau tries to get the up and under, but the acceleration is there for Kunze.
Yeah, good move then from the German driver to put himself up into second. I knew you were going to get your sandwich line in there somewhere, Zach. I don't think I've been a broadcast in the last month with you without it being a feature. But you're absolutely right to say that he was, the German bread was in the French. Oh, sorry, I've messed it up. I'm trying to think that Filippo was going to make the move there, but he's nearly gone for it, but just about sticking behind.
Yeah, he's thinking about it. But again, you've got 18 minutes left of this race to go. Have they sort of gone, yeah, Philip Dreiss has gone. Are they settling for second at this stage, or is there more to go and get? Because the more they battle, the worse their situation is going to get, and the less and less likely they are to go and catch Dreiss.
And that's really the point here, because Dreiss is just starting to stretch his legs and run away. 2.8 now is that gap, fluctuating around that region, and Julian Kunze really is going to have to put in a masterclass if he's going to drag him back in towards contention, because otherwise Dreiss is running away with this and likely to start P10 in the second race. And that's going to be a concern, really, for everybody else, knowing that he'll be just behind them. But the other alternative to that is that Dreiss hasn't had to race anybody during this first race of the evening, which does mean that he's going to be more susceptible, maybe, as the others who have been, able to, not practice their racecraft, but have been racing for the last 25 minutes in this race one, might have that upper hand in some regard.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, we've seen a plethora of overtakes. Can see a couple of people in the YouTube chat, maybe new to the Hockenheimring, not too sure where the action zones are. This is definitely one of them. Turn 6, the Spitzkehre hairpin. After that long curve straight, as Dara so eloquently put it, into the heavy braking zone, that's where the main majority of moves are going to get done. But in cars like these, with drivers like these, it can happen almost anywhere. Slight look to the inside from Vicente on Sven Mackenberg, the fight for P10 as well, as it all sort of, Constantine is up going into the hairpin as drivers look for the apex, but the driver on the outside definitely getting the better run, and that's pretty much the tell of the tale sometimes with that hairpin. It's so ebb and flow. Sometimes the inside is the more beneficial line, sometimes it's actually the outside that works better.
Yeah, it really does depend, and it can change with the track conditions, of course. You know, if the track's warmer, you can sometimes get a little bit more grip around the outside, and if it's cooler, of course. So there's always that little bit of the unknown between which line is faster, and it can fluctuate throughout the race. You've just got to be on your toes and willing to try something different, maybe an up and under, maybe something that catches your opponent off guard, really. So I think that's what Filippo's going to have to do, but he knows far better than me how to overtake the likes of Julian Kinzer, because that's why he's one of the best drivers on the platform.
Yeah, much better than we are. Of course, it does help when you can reach the pedals as well, Dara, I'm sure. And also, by the way, this man on Indianapolis uses the racing line. You know that circuit that goes left 4 times? Dara uses the racing line, and he'll come back and say, oh, I won the Indianapolis 375 and drunk some milk or something. I don't know. Basically, it was very interesting for Dara Thacker. But nonetheless, it is fairly... Is that why you use pad and not wheel? Is it because you can't reach the pedals?
Well, firstly, I'd like to point out that before that race had started, I forgot to turn it off, and it made no difference to me on Forza Motorsport. And at the same time, no, I don't have a wheel because I can't find anywhere to put it. Meanwhile, sorry, Julian Kunze was ducking and diving there. Filippo was trying to find the move. Kunze's gone deep. He's had to try and drift his way through the corner to get him straightened up enough. And Enzo Filippo's going to take advantage of that and go to the inside line as they make their way into this right-hand kink. He should have enough momentum to keep him in P2. And Filippo, I mean, that's come as a bit of a surprise. Kunze tried to defend, but Filippo just outsmarted him into that hairpin.
He did. Kunze, of course, trying to make the most of that 550 brake horsepower going to the rear wheels of this M4. In the end, though, it wasn't quite enough to get the drive off the corner, and Filippo gets ahead into second place. Look out, though, because Christian Orban is lurking, and he is hunting the 2 in front of him. He sniffs a podium, he wants to go and get it, and he can see Filippo and Kunze right up in front, and I can guarantee all Christian Orban can see is opportunity.
Yeah, and we'll have to see if Filippo can try and get further up the field. Well, I say get further up the field, get closer, I should say, to Philip Dries, because that gap is now at 4 seconds. It looks almost insurmountable at this point as it just grows and grows and grows with nearly half the race completed. But these guys fighting have allowed Christian Orban back into this battle, and he's within a second as well. So if they keep going at it, there's definitely a chance for Orban to put himself somewhere on the podium here. So they've got to keep in mind that there's not just the 2 of them that they're going to be fighting with, but a third joining the party in the not too distant future. So this is going to be quite interesting to see how Kunze plays this. Does he go for the same kind of move that Filippo does, or does he sit and wait for the time being with no pressure behind?
And that's the question. That's the difficulty that a sim racer, a racing driver in general, will have to deal with, is how to process each and every single situation, because there are so many different variables, so many different outcomes. It's like Doctor Strange trying to calculate the 14 million, whatever it was, and 6 different possibilities. That is exactly what a racing driver does every single time they go for an overtake, because it is always just ever so slightly different, even if they've experienced it. 3 wide, by the way, just in the background. Oh my goodness me, that is changing paces. I think that's the fight for P12. Rokas to be Heaven and Gontier doing battle into the Spitzkehre hairpin. It's all set itself out, but that's the level that these guys are racing to. They are already not even halfway through this race, going 3 wide, sending moves into the heaviest braking zone on the circuit.
Yeah, they really are going for it, aren't they? There's not much holding back in this opening round. Just look at that in towards the corner. There's nearly 3 wide as they make their way through. But here's Kunze getting past Filippo again. Filippo looking for the outside line into the stadium section. Is he going to try and dance his way all the way around the outside? Surely he can't make that one work. And in the end, no, he can't. We'll have to stick him behind Kunze for the time being. But look where Christian Orban is now. He is right on the gearbox, and he will be taking part in this battle, you'd expect, by the end of this lap. If not, well, I say the end of this next lap, if not sooner.
Provided Alex Mosen doesn't join this fight, I would argue Christian Orban is in the best position of the three. I would say that Enzo Filipao is definitely in the worst, and I know you're saying, well, Filipao's ahead, he's on the podium, how is that a worse position than Orban? And that's because what we were going back to last lap, Filipao is looking forwards to attack Kunze and backwards to try and keep Orban behind. He's constantly under pressure to put pressure on Julian Kunze, and one small slip up and Enzo Filipao could immediately drop to the back of this train, gifting that position to Christian Orban. Whereas Orban, he's happy, he's sitting there, he's chilling, he's got the slipstream, he's got the pace. Anything goes amiss between those two in front of him, and he's straight away going to have a nice, easy job sweeping his hands and capitalising on 2 free positions.
Yeah, we'll have to see how he plays it, of course, because he could just sit and wait for the others to try and come together, but at the same time, with time ticking down, he might not have the patience to wait and might be worried that he won't have the opportunity in doing so whilst doing that. A couple of drivers going wide. That's Danko going off the track. We're looking at Heaven, the British driver, in 12th position, trying to overtake, I think that was Rokas to be. So that won't be the first British-Dutch fight that we'll see this evening. But here's Danko and Sven Mackenberg still going at it. Marvin and Mihai Nej have come together, and they're off the road. And that's Marvin Mackenberg waiting for the others to come through. But he's dropped down to 10th now. That's a disastrous moment for him. And Nej, he's out.
Yeah, that is such a shame. Of course, both of our Romanian contingents of Mihai Nej and Margitas, both of them are out of the race. That is such a shame for the two of them, because both of them are very strong, and I'm sure both of them could use some margaritas come the end of this race as well, because sometimes it is just that little bit painful to have all that hard work struck away from you. But there is opportunity in race 2, albeit with 10 less minutes on the clock. Sven Mackenberg, of course, the brother of Marvin, looking to seek vengeance for his brother's downfall and capitalise on a good couple of positions. Of course, recently joining T6 Motorsport as 2 new esports drivers, of course, raced in the Racing Super Touring Championship of Season 3. Didn't do too bad, and are now representing the yellow and black, even though neither of them are in the colour scheme whatsoever. Sort it out, Rich Retherwill. Sven Mackenberg, though, in P8, and he's searching down for P7. He's not a million miles away from it, but in a similar situation, he's pinched between the Hungarian of Danko and the Spaniard of Vicente.
Yeah, you could say it's a, well, I won't annoy you by saying it's a Mackenberg sandwich, but I'll just put that one out there just to annoy you in some regard. He is trying to get through on Danko, but he's not going to be able to do anytime soon, I don't think.
You could say it's a Mackenberg sandwich if you're saying it's Danko and Vicente bed. It's sort of like half and half. But anyway, with Mackenberg finding his way through on Danko, in fact, actually, that's not going to be the case, because the very vibrantly liveried BMW M4 goes the way of Danko. He finds his way through into 7th place. It's a Vicente sandwich with Mackenberg bread, if you're talking about 8, 9, 10. Get it right, know your sandwiches. That is basically commentary 101. That is the first thing you get taught, basically. 9 minutes and 20 left to go on the clock, by the way. Probably going to translate itself into a good few laps, maybe 6, 7-ish laps. All depends on when Philip Dreiss crosses the line. But to kickstart what is at least going to be 75% of the races on German soil, a 1-2 to kick things off at the moment, it's not too bad going.
Not at all. And we'll have to see if they can keep this up throughout the rest of the season. Will be impressive if they can, but we will see. As they come to the line, Dreiss has crossed the line with 8:52 to go. So I do believe we're going to have another 5 laps left, maybe squeezing a 6th as well. So it's going to be close, but we're on that kind of threshold. But Kunze and Filippo, I'm sure whoever's in 3rd would like it to go one more extra lap to give them a chance of getting through.
Exactly. That's the thing, especially, of course, for, I mean, not necessarily, I suppose, for Luca D'Amico, considering he's a good 3.5 seconds off Mosen. But, of course, any position inside those top 5, of course, it's top 5 finishing order reverse for race 2. So all of these positions are going to be deciding their starting position for the second race. Anyone further back as well, where you finish is where you start. So not only do you want extra points for the championship round, you also want to boost your starting position and boost your odds for race number 2, because you're going to have less time to get the moves done. Danko versus Mackenberg once again, as Kunze versus Filipao, the Frenchman trying to apply the pressure to the German, but it's thwarted just about inside line, as well as Danko versus Mackenberg. Vicente trying to go the long way round as well, absolutely sending the move on Sven Mackenberg, but says no, gets pushed to the outside of the circuit as Vicente tries to put his foot to the floor and apply the pressure to Mackenberg, and this is a great relief for Danko ahead.
Yeah, Vicente looking for the outside line. If he can just squeeze it down the inside in towards the tight left-hander. He's gone far too deep, though, you'd say. He's made the apex, but it's allowed Sven Mackenberg a bit of an up and under. The problem that he's got is he's now got the outside line as they make their way through this more than 90 degrees of right-hand turn. But Vicente still on the inside. There's absolutely nothing to split them as they come in towards the stadium section into the left. And can Vicente just keep this one, or Mackenberg around the outside hold it? They're still side by side, Zach. There's nothing to split them, but you'd think the inside line would work in towards this tight left-hander, but Vicente all the way around the outside is still going to hold it.
Beautifully done. They're still side by side, by the way. It's Vicente in the grey and red on the inside. Of course, the white and the black goes the way of Sven Mackenberg, the German driver, and that is a sensational battle brought to a close momentarily. The battle is won. The war is far from over for Vicente as they start the next lap. 6 minutes 45 on the clock. Not long left to go in race number 1. Don't forget, we get to do it all over again in more of a sprint format with 15 minutes of race 2 straight after this. So do not go anywhere at all. Getting the cheer from the virtual crowd is Sven Mackenberg as he tries to pursue after the Spaniard of Vicente. Meanwhile, though, Danko, thanks to how important momentum and top speed is at the Hockenheimring, he's gone. He's out. He's in the woods. You know, 1.6 seconds clear of that battle purely because of a couple of corners spent side by side.
Yeah, it's annoying for Sven, though, because it's the second time he's lost to a Spaniard in the space of a week, if you count the football last Friday, so he's going to have to try and rectify that one soon. Look, I'm getting it in until we inevitably go out in about 3 hours' time. I'm just saying.
I'm betting on it, mate.
Rokas de B is making moves, as well as Noj down the inside as he goes on better Daniel, as the Czech driver looking to get himself towards the top 10 after starting in P17. Progress has not been easy for him at this stage of the race, and he's going to have to try and get a couple more spots if he wants to gain himself as many points as he can. Into the right hand, getting close, little bit of contact, I think, but we've just seen a lot of door-to-door banging and not really anything coming out of it so far.
Yeah, these guys keeping it nice and clean. The tolerance of the GT4 is fantastic. Of course, that Mercedes Arena section, that pinch point on the apex, it's infamous. We've all been there, done that, got the t-shirt for it, I'm sure. Of course, with Petter Daniel, it was ever so close to knocking to the inside of Balázs Nagy and potentially sending him spinning. 5 minutes 10 on the clock. Lap 12 begins. Philip Dreiss leads Julian Kunze by 5 seconds. Then the battle for P2. Kunze versus Enzo Filipao. Christian Orban falling off the back a little bit. Is that because these two have settled it down the last couple of laps?
Maybe, but it also could be that Dreiss is just, relaxing a little bit, knowing that he doesn't have to keep up the pace too high because he's got that confident gap behind him. He's not really worrying about where they are necessarily, but yeah, it's difficult to say, isn't it? But I don't think Dreiss is going to be worried about it with the gap that he does have. It would require, more than a second and a half a lap to disappear, or a big old mistake from him to lose this race win, and he might be taking his foot off the throttle in anticipation of just making sure he gets it to the end.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, you want to maintain the position you're in, particularly if it's a good one. There's Christian Orban there. As things stand, will be starting on the front row for race 2 alongside Alex Mosen, who will make it, by the way, 3 Germans inside the top 5 for the Hockenheimring. Rokas de B is disqualified from this race. That tells me he has reached the incident limit. Of course, you get an incident for any off tracks, any spins, any contacts that are deemed your fault. I think they get 40. And in 22 minutes, not even 22 minutes, 21 minutes and 10 seconds, he's managed to surpass that. Track limits at the Hockenheimring are tricky, and it has definitely been a bit of a war zone back there in sort of that top 15 brawl.
He's got to watch the football, isn't he, Rokas? He's Dutch.
True.
I mean, it lines up. No, but regardless, unfortunately for him,
the broadcast will turn off because Chris has gone to go and watch it.
Of course. Yeah, obviously, people at home, if you're just tuning in, of course, broadcast director Chris, the wonderful Chris, he's Dutch.
Chris Captain Coffee,
obviously, we're
Chris.
English. Yes, of course. Thank you for reminding me of that. But it's Dutch it's the Dutch against the English up here in the commentary booth as well. So I'm very sure that if the Dutch score early on and we're still alive, Zach, we're going to get laughed at in RFA.
Oh, of course we are. I put a bet on the Dutch winning purely because I have no faith in England. It's fine. It was a free bet. Don't gamble if you're under the age of 18 or whatever.
Oh, obviously, we're not advocating for gambling.
No, we're not. Unless it's free, in which case, do what you like. 3 minutes left to go, by the way, in this race. Philip Dreiss versus Julian Kunze, Enzo Filipao battling away for the top 3 spots. Of course, all 3 of their nationalities out of the Euros, and they're vying to bring at least some glory back to their country.
Gosh, we really should, you know, tone it down a bit because we
We're
are
not
going
making
like a
any
couple of
friends,
hours
mate.
time. No, we're not. Yeah. I don't normally make friends. So this is it's fine. Enzo Filippo and Julian Kinzer, they're still fighting out for P2. Christian Orban not too far behind, but he has dropped off, hasn't he? While we've been messing around somewhat, he's now 2 seconds behind these guys. So maybe it is the fact that these guys are picking up the pace a little bit more because Christian Orban was right in this fight, and now he's dropped off the back. And it could be that Dries is just, you know, matching the pace of Kunze and Filippo, which will be interesting as we go in towards race 2.
Exactly. 2 minutes left on the clock, by the way. That tells me there's probably going to be 2 laps left to go by the time Philip Dries crosses the line. Of course, Alvaro Vicente, P8, Sven Mackenberg in behind with Marvin Mackenberg completing the top 10. You've then got Matthew Heaven there in P11. He's only been able to ascend himself 1 position from his starting grid of P12, but, well, +1 is, you know, every little helps. Any gain is a gain at the end of the day, and he'll be looking to emulate that going into race 2. But Sven Mackenberg in pursuit and potentially reeling his brother into contention as well. We often see these guys helping each other out, and I'm sure today is going to be no different should they get the opportunity.
Yeah, but of course that would probably come in towards race 2, as I think we may be on the final lap. It's going to be very, very close. I was watching the timing screen, and Philip Dries crossed the line, I believe with 1:46 on the clock, and his last lap was a 1:46.8. So this is really going to be close, unless he just decides to back off and take it now, which would probably be advisable. Filippo's not going to be waiting around, though. He's going for the move around the outside of the hairpin. Kunze made sure he didn't grab the inside line.
Yeah, exactly. He's gone in deep, though, I fear. Enzo Filippo getting that late apex. Bit of a squirrely exit for the German. And look at the power with the slipstream from Enzo Filippo. Whether it's the penultimate, whether it's the last lap, he is not taking any chances. The M2 CS champion is Enzo Filippo. He's going to be battling towards the Mercedes Arena section. Late on the brakes as Kunze parks it in the middle of the circuit. There's contact between the pair of them, and there's not long left to go in this race.
Yeah, 30 seconds as the clock is ticking down. We'll wait to see if Filippo gets another chance at the move, or whether Dries will find the flag. He does have the prerogative. He can very much lose a couple of seconds on his lap time and definitely meet the flag, or he can just keep going and try to extend this for yet another lap. That time coming down 15, 14, 12. Filippo and Kunze are going to make their way through the stadium section, but this is going to be oh so close.
It is indeed. Of course, a little bit wide from Enzo Filippo. I think any chance of getting that second place are done and dusted. Philip Dries is going to take the checker flag. This will be the final lap of the race, and it goes the way of our 2-time MX5 RaceRoom ranked champion. Philip Dries takes victory on home soil. Julian Kunze makes it a German 1-2 to kickstart the season. A German circuit in a German car, and it's a German 1-2. Enzo Filippo still on the podium, and a hard-fought battle all the way to the end between the pair of them. What a race we just saw. 25 minutes of non-stop action.
Yeah, and Tucker Hacken has put it beautifully in the YouTube chat. 1-2 and a good day for Need Racing. So they've had a great time with Filippo and Orban just behind, but this is setting up for a fantastic second race.
Exactly. Philip Dries, Julian Kunze the top 2 with Enzo Filippo the fastest lap of the race. Not by much, by the way. 46.7 for the entirety of the top 3. Christian Orban from Alex Mosen, who will start on pole position for race 2. Once again, a German at the front. Luca D'Amico just missed out in P6 with, of course, Gergo Danko in 6th place. Of course, in 7th place, I should say. Sven Mackenberg ahead of Alvaro Vicente. Marvin Mackenberg completing the top 10, making it a Vicente sandwich with Mackenberg bread. Matthew Heaven ahead of Banish Noj. Petter Daniel, the unlucky 13 once again for the Czech driver. With Thomas Gontier, 14th. Then comes Brandt Volta in 16th. Higgs, Lisa, Sanchez, and Gaspar Misch not missing out on the top 20 in the race. Beautiful stuff from him. Further down, Underwood ahead of Fiesa, Marchena, Jean Pret, who unfortunately we did lose very early on in a collision. Graf from Blahout, who got the jump start. And then, of course, our non-finishers of Mihai Noj, Margitas, and Rokas de B, the only DQ of this race, reaching that incident limit. Now, Dara, Thacker, we get to do 15 more minutes of that with a reverse grid and drivers that still have a lot left on the table. I'm sure Enzo Filippo wants a round 2 with Julian Kunze.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. It'll be interesting to see if we do get more fighting between particularly those two drivers of Dries and Kunze, Filippo Orban Motion as well. It'll be interesting to see how this 15 minutes pans out because, of course, 50 minutes sprint race in every sense of the word. There's no time to be waiting around. You have to be going for those moves early on, particularly if you're further back in the order. There is no room for error. It's going to be important to see who gets off the line first.
Exactly. Of course, standing start once again. And as I say, it's a top 5 reverse. So look at the top 5, flip them on the head, and that's what we've got for race number 2. 3 Germans inside the top 5. And now we've got, of course, 15 minutes of race 2. And what are we going to expect? Are we going to expect a more tame race? Because sort of, I don't know, maybe there's less time. The drivers are going to be a little bit more cautious based off the fact that they've done in race 1. Or is it going to be a case of, hang on, we've got 10 less minutes here. We need to get these moves done.
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of a case of that. There's not enough time for these guys to be waiting around. They're not waiting to set their grid positions at all. This is it. They can throw away the cars. They don't even have to pay for any of the damage, obviously, as these aren't real cars. They're obviously going to be going for these moves probably very early in the race. Maybe there'll be a little lull period for about 5 minutes or so where the drivers try and consolidate their position before really going for it towards the end because they just don't have that time to sit and wait. So I think this could be quite an interesting 50 minutes of racing, particularly at the front, as that top 5 is split around again. Yeah,
it is. Of course, all of them arguably fairly matched on pace. Maybe Mosin and Orban a little bit off, but the top 3, as we saw, 47.6 for both, all 3, of course, of Philippau, of Dries, and of course of Julian Kunze, all of them within 1/10 of a second their best lap. And if it weren't for the battling early on, I think we very much could have had a 3-way fight at the front. I think that's exactly what we're going to be expecting for race number 2. Of course, the way this championship works, we've got 4 rounds. We're here today at the Hockenheimring. In a week's time, they'll head to the Lausitzring. A week after that, they'll go to the Nordschleife. And the week after that, you guys get your say on the community vote of what track they take to for round 4. Each of those rounds is effectively its own championship. Race 1 and 2 score each their own points, and then the total points are added up, and then the person who scores the most points of race 1 and 2 will win the round, and that's then when the championship points will be awarded. So that's how the overall championship is scored. So consistency across both race 1 and race 2 is vital if you want to come away from today in good stead for the championship.
Yeah, and there's no real time to recuperate those points if you lose too many tonight. Of course, 4 rounds is it. I mean, we think of short championships as being 7-8 rounds. 4 rounds, it is such a tight turnaround. You cannot afford to drop any points throughout the course of the season. And let's hope for these guys that there's no too big of a crash.
Exactly that. 15 minutes on the clock, 5 red lights on. Race 2 of round 1 of the M4 GT4 Trophy here at the Hockenheimring is underway. Alex Mosin, Christian Orban the front row, and I think the Hungarian might have the measure of the German into turn 1. He does, but the momentum swings the way of Mosin, who keeps his foot in off the circuit. Philip Dries versus Enzo Philippau, by the way, as Julian Kunze tries to get himself into the mix. They could well momentarily be 3 wide on this run towards turn 2. Dries versus Orban versus Kunze late on the brakes for our race 1 winner. He's already catapulted himself from 5th, maybe into 3rd. He's fighting for 2nd through turn number 3 onto this flat out section towards the Spitzker hairpin. It's Kunze from Dries, Philippau locked in formation.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see Luca D'Amico trying to make a move on the inside. They were 4 wide, I think, going into the second corner, and they're going to be 3 wide into the hairpin. Here comes Filippo up the middle. Kunze and Dries either side of him. Who's going to come out on top in this one? You can see them all plough in 2 deep, 3 wide. Big send from, I think that was Danko trying to make the move, and there's all little bits of contact as they make their way off of the corner. But at the front, it's Kunze who's made the move ahead of Filippo, and Dries, who went from 5th to 2nd momentarily, is back down to 4th again.
Yeah, that's just how quick the momentum can swing. Christian Orban under pressure from Luca D'Amico as well. Sven Mackenberg there in 7th place. But these guys have got to be so careful not to fall into the same mistake they made this time a race ago. Alex Mosin getting that good start, keeping that momentum on the outside of turn 1. Meanwhile, these guys are fighting for 2nd. I think the Swede Brandt has had an issue. He's gone round in the back end of the circuit, just off the exit of the Mercedes Arena section, side by side in the background. Gontier, Petter Daniel doing battle towards the Sachs curve as well. It's all pandemonium, really, in that mid part of the pack. You can see they're 2 abreast, 2 rows deep as they battle their way through the final sector.
Yeah, bouncing their way through the curbs, and here's Gontier through on the inside of Petter Daniel making the move in that resplendent blue and yellow car. Feeling very much like the summer with that livery on, but he's made his way up into P12. Petter Daniel and Heaven not too far back either, but back at the front, these guys, Kunze, Filippo, Dries, I mean, they're really going to be going at it for the rest of the race, I'd imagine, as Mosin is just trying to scamper away at the front.
But Julian Kunze is not letting him get away. He is keeping that margin under a second. Naturally, of course, obviously, no DRS on these M4s, but the slipstream is probably going to be around that 0.8 margin. If you're within that, you will be getting a feeling of that. You'll have less air resistance, you'll have an increased top speed, and that will slowly but surely reel that pack in, unless they do things like that. Julian Kunze all the way to the far right, Enzo Filipao to the left, of course, side by side, and there's the up and under from Philip Dreiss. I could see that coming a mile away. Bit of a pinch point at the apex. They emerge 2, 3, and 4 as they were, but this time with a slightly bigger gap up to Alex Mosen.
Yeah, I thought that Philip Dreiss was going to be going around there on the exit of the corner, but just about held it all together as he made his way out of the hairpin. But as they dived their way through at the Mercedes grandstand once again, nothing changing at the front, really, but they are still staying so close together. Imogen is just trying to keep his nose out in front because he knows that these guys behind are probably going to be just a little bit quicker than him throughout the course of a 15-minute race, but they have to make their way past, and if they start fighting with each other, they're going to find it increasingly difficult to make that move.
Basic racecraft, you know, it's racing 101. There's one thing about being a quick driver, there's another thing about being a quick racer. I've had it recently, went to my local kart circuit to do a race league and was astounded as to the lack of common sense of some of the racing drivers. We could see a pack of 6 cars in front of us battling, and they were like, nah, we're going to fight for P13, we're still 10 minutes of the race left to go. It was unbelievable, but that is something these drivers need to not fall victim to. If they fight too early on, knowing Alex Mosen is attainable, right? That's not a glass ceiling. That's not something they can see but can't get to. It firmly is something they've got the pace to go and catch. They do not want to settle for P2 too early on. They need to put their egos aside, and for the next couple of minutes, couple of laps, go and catch Alex Mosen.
Yeah, they've got to make sure that Alex Mosen doesn't get too far in front, as we do have an issue at the back. Sanchez and Underwood dropping down the order. The only South African in the field is come to blows with the Spaniard, but they will get themselves righted again. It doesn't look like there was too much of an issue for them there, but with still 2/3 of this race to go, there's still lots of chances for pretty much anything to happen.
Exactly that. I mean, we've got you know, still 2/3 of the race left to run. And with that comes plenty of opportunity for chaos. The top 3 separated by 3/4 of a second. Here's a battle as well between Danko and Balasnash, the 2 countrymen doing battle, P9 and P10. There's a huge send to the inside as Danko tries to thread the needle through. Balasnash is not going to be happy about that one at all as he drops to the lower end of the top 10. Gontier is into the mix with Vicente and Petter Daniel. Also Matthew Heaven in the mix. Also not too far back is the Swissman. Volta either in 15th place. So one small mistake in a pack race like this can very much change the tide.
Yeah, it's going to be important just to see side-by-side action as they make their way through the stadium section. Nothing going to be doing there in the end, but you know, it does show how keen some of these drivers are to make these moves. Inside line now as we go into the penultimate and then into the final corner. It's Petter Daniel looking for the move if he can make it around the outside, but down the inside, because Vincente is around the outside. Heaven's in here as well, and he might be looking up the inside of turn 1. But these guys, they are all over each other at the moment.
They very much are. Of course, applying the pressure more and more lap on lap, and the closer they get to the finish line, the more the pressure and the stakes start to ramp up. Kunze versus Enzo Filipao through the first sector towards the back end of it, just past the timing line to kickstart sector 2. Filipao in the slipstream, all of them in the slipstream of Alex Mosen. Could they launch an attack by the time they get to the braking zone? I think they're a little bit far off for that one. Enzo Filipao, the closing speed, as Julian Kunze goes defensive just to deter the move to the middle of the circuit, gives Filipao a choice. Do you risk it to the outside, or do you risk it even more and go to the inside? Filipao, though, with the up and under as they fight side by side, but the run is good enough for Kunze to stay ahead.
Yeah, and it's going to make sure that it's still a German 1-2 for now as they dive their way in towards the stadium section. In towards the Mercedes grandstand section of the racetrack. But, I mean, you can just see how keen Filippo is to get through. And just these little looks, these little moves and the defensive shapes that are having to be thrown by Julian Kunze are preventing him from really going after Mosen at the moment, because that gap it's not big by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not small enough. Norge and Danko, they've had some issues. They've come together, and the 2 Hungarians are dropping down the order like stones.
Yeah, and again, it's just so easy for things to go wrong just like that. and it's such a shame because both of them had the opportunity to do so many great things in this race. 8 minutes left to run still. Mosen, Kunze, Philippau, Dries, the top 4 as Orban completes the top 5, just about hanging into contention. The top 4 separated by 1.2 seconds. Anything can happen as a long train back all the way to Sven and Marvin Mackenberg in P7 and P8. There is a battle. Petter Daniel finds himself into the top 10, but Matthew Heaven is not going to be having any of that and wants to put the Czech driver back down again, side by side through turn 1. How have they managed to make that work?
Of a body check there on Petter Daniel, wasn't there, as Matthew Heaven still finding a way. He's now going to have to defend from Mihai Nej and Volther as they make their way down in towards turn 2. Around the outside goes the Swiss driver, not going to find any room there, and here comes Mihai Nej doing a bit of an up and under. What a move there from the Romanian driver. There's a little bit of door banging between the two of them, as now Vicente is going to be looking for the move on the Swissman, but as they run their way through the hairpin, it looks like it's Kunze still leading Filippo, and this is really where it's starting to kick off, Zach.
Yeah, very much so. Of course, still with 7 minutes left to run in this race, you don't need to lead any lap of a race apart from out of the final corner and across the checkered flag. That is all you need, and you are the deserved victor. I know it sounds obvious, but people oftentimes just say, oh, he's leading the race, he's doing such a good job, it's going to be an easy victory. No, it's not. Until he crosses the checkered flag, he is not out of the woods just yet. Julian Kunze, Enzo Philippau, and Philip Dries are all going to be applying that pressure for the next 6.5 minutes. Any one of them could take to the top step, but there's only one top step.
Yes, there is. But there is a second step and there is a third step. So I think
but they're not as good.
They'll also be happily. Yeah, they're not as good, but they'll happily. It's better than not having, well, than finishing 4th and not having a step at all. I know what that's like, not having a step, and it's painful. Yeah. I knew you were going to make it there if I didn't get there first. But yeah, 6 minutes to go in this race. And yeah, this is going to be quite a hard-fought battle. You can definitely envisage the likes of Filippo or Dries trying to make a move here, and the likes of, or Filippo making a move on Kunze, or Kunze making a move on Motion as he is now, and maybe Dries can sneak somewhere into the top 3. But really now, this is a 4-way fight for the win, and there is nothing that's going to stop these guys from fighting the way to the end.
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, unless there's a big crash, a big incident, or something or other, something anomalous to really throw these guys out of contention. But on pure pace, these guys are landlocked together. They are very much not being separated by much. Alex Mosen defensive into the Spitzke hairpin, gives Julian Kunze the squeeze, and that opens the door for Philippau to switch late to the inside. They emerge 3 wide as Mosen goes in deep. Who's going to get the drive? It's going to go the way of Julian Kunze, who puts his foot to the floor and hopes it's enough to beat Alex Mosen to the inside of the King. Of course, it's then the outside of the Mercedes Arena section. What's Philippau and Dries going to do about this battle? Julian Kunze has the advantage going in. They go into 2 rows of 2 as Dries sends the move onto the inside of Philippau. Who's going to be the one that emerges from the lead though? Kunze and Mosen battling still side by side.
Yeah, Mosen keeping his foot in around the outside, and I think he's just about kept the lead, but Kunze is going to have a slight advantage into the stadium section, and Dries is going to put his nose in as well. I think he doesn't in the end, but Mosen has lost out his position. It will, in the dying minutes here, I think we'll have 3 more laps to go come the end of this one. So it's going to be really, really important to make these moves now. And as these guys have been fighting away really, really tough, Christian Orban, once again, he's just benefiting from fighting going on, and he's back into contention.
Exactly that, and that's all it takes is the battling ahead to reel you back in, and well, there you go. Once you're stuck into the pack, even if you're a couple of attempts off the pace, you can very much stay within it and maybe even go for glory. Christian Orban is a driver that very much can sort of squirrel his way into places that maybe his pace doesn't reflect, but his racecraft and his consistency most certainly do. Mosen versus Dries as the 2-time MX-5 champion and Race 1 winner tries to go to the outside, of course puts Mosen off his line and tries to get the advantage. Has the drive, slingshots his way around the outside to the inside of turn 3. Now as they put their foot to the floor, it's a German 1, 2, 3, but these guys do not care. They want to be the German taking to the highest place possible.
Yeah, they all want to have that that win next to their name all the way through history in terms of the rank championship. When we look back at all of the past winners, particularly for Mosen, who hasn't had as many of these opportunities as Kunze and Dries, so he'll definitely be really fighting hard for this one, but he is just slipping down just ever so slightly. We've only got 3 minutes to go though. It does look like there's going to be 2.5 more laps to run as we work our way through this race. But Kunze, he's pulling away, isn't he? And it's going to take something from Dries to catch and then overtake.
Exactly, and then it's going to be another thing entirely to stay in front if/when he's able to get the move done. 3 minutes on the clock. It will be the penultimate lap of the race next time by Julian Kunze, Philipp Dreiss, Alex Mosen trying to do one better than the German 1-2 they did in race 1. Mosen is in contention. Philippau and Orban want to upset the cradle ever so slightly here at the Hockenheimring. But what a first round we've got, and we've still got 3 more weeks, 6 more races of this to come.
Exactly. It's not going to stop, is it, over the coming weeks and over the next month or so. So these guys are really going to have to keep up the pace all the way through this 4-race series. But 2 to go then, as they make their way across the line. Kunze leads Dreiss by a comfortable-ish margin of about 0.6 of a second. Mosin is there, but not really in the fight. And it has just strung out a bit, hasn't it? These guys not as close as they were 2-3 minutes ago, so it's going to be down to if anybody can really catch and try and make that move in the last couple of laps, because at the moment it looks like everyone is relatively safe in their positions.
Pretty much, and I think maybe it's just going to be a case of a calm before the storm, whereby they sort of play it safe for the penultimate lap and then go all guns a-blazing for that final dash. Sven Mackenberg trying to do one better and find his way past Luca D'Amico. To be fair, as a couple, they're not a million miles away from that top 5 fight. As you can see, they're line astern into Spitzkær. Of course, Mackenberg trying to find his way through on D'Amico, but no gap there as his brother Sven is a couple of seconds back, Marvin is a couple of seconds back on his brother Sven as they're side-by-side into the hairpin as well. Further down, Gontier versus Petter Daniel doing battle, then a huge old kerfuffle further back, 5 cars involved. No matter where you are on this field, you are going for absolutely anything you can muster.
Oh, absolutely. Every position counts, doesn't it? So all of these guys are going to be wanting to make 1 or 2 more moves if they can. If nothing else, just for a bit of pride. Oh my word. There's Danko going off the circuit. There is all manner of chaos going on. The Hungarian driver is going to slip down the order, and he's not going to be missed as Gasper's up to P19. But, you know, it's a melee down there, really, wasn't there? There was cars all over the circuit.
Darrow was so focused on getting the Mish-pun in, he didn't know how to finish the point. Goodness me. The priorities of the RaceRoom commentary box, ladies and gentlemen, as Petter Daniel tries to look to the inside of Thomas Gontier. Last lap of the race with 30 seconds on the clock. Kunze, Dreiss, Mosen, Philippau, Orban, all of them nose to tail for the last 14.5 minutes. It comes down to this.
Yeah, let's see. On this final lap, can Kunze hold on to the lead here, or can Dreiss make it 2 from 2 and really kickstart his championship ambitions in the best way? Up towards the hairpin we will go. The slipstream will be taking effect for Philipp Dreiss. Not so much for Mosin or Philippau or Orban. So let's see. Can Dreiss make that move? He's so far back as we make our way towards the hairpin. I don't think he's close enough, Zach.
No, I don't think so. Let's have a look. Who's going to be the last of the late breakers? None of them. They're all fairly sensible, but a move too deep there from Julian Kunze. The racing line gets taken by Philipp Dreiss. Maybe that's going to allow the race 1 winner to lick his lips, maybe in delight, to try and search for a move on a vulnerable Julian Kunze. Inside line potentially, but opportunities wearing thin with every corner that goes past.
Yeah, there's not really going to be another real place to be able to send it, is there, for Julian Kunze? Philipp Dreiss is going to be looking forward at some point, but into the stadium section, it's going to be very, very difficult to find a line either way. So let's see if he can do it as they make their way into the stadium section. It's just not going to be enough, I don't think, unless he just has some kind of miracle into the final 2 corners.
Yeah, it's going to be an almighty send, isn't it, if he wants to win this race. But Julian Kunze has driven this race with such maturity. He firmly does deserve to take the top mantle of race number 2 of the M4 GT4 Trophy, race 2 of round 1 of the 2nd championship of RaceRoom Ranked in 2024. Side by side for the final place on the podium, Enzo Philippau puts an end to the German 1-2-3 on home soil. But Julian Kunze sees the checkered flag first and is victorious for race 2 here today. He leads Philipp Dreiss home to make it a German 1-2. Once again, Enzo Philippau onto the podium. What a 15-minute battle that was between 4 of 5 of the greatest drivers on the RaceRoom platform. Further back as well, the top 10 to be decided. There they are. Kunze from Philipp Dreiss, roles reversed as they were in race 1. And once again, a fantastic day in the office for both Germany and NeedRacing.com. Enzo Philippau, once again the fastest lap, and once again the top 3 within the same 10th of a second for their fastest lap. Alex Mosen from Christian Orban, that's the top 5. Luca D'Amico, 6th place, ahead of the 2 Mackenberg brothers of Sven and Marvin. Thomas Gontier ahead of Petter Daniel. That's the top 10 places of race number 2. Behind that, Mihai Nej getting redemption for an unfortunate display of events in race 1 ahead of Matthew Heaven. Balashnoz ahead of Vicente, that's the top 14. Higgs, Lysa Marchena, Volta. Of course, then comes Sanchez. Gaspar Misch, once again, not missing out on the top 20. Underwood, Rokas to be not exceeding the incident limit there in 22nd. Fiza from Gras, Margitas, Blahout, Danko, Brandt and Jean-Pierre, unfortunately, are DNFs, those back for the 29 cars that took to the start. Only 25 of them reached the checker flag. Dara Thacker, my oh my. Talk about, kicking things off in style, right?
Yeah, it was quite an evening, wasn't it? There was lots of moves, lots of overtaking. We didn't know who was going to win that second race for the first half at least, and even into the final couple of laps, there was a bit of a question mark over it. But there were moves throughout the field. There was chaos left, right, and centre. Hockenheim does kind of lend itself to that kind of action. But yeah, great way to start off the season, and it really sets up the championship well for the final 3 rounds.
I think so indeed. And of course, what are we going to expect then for the next 3 rounds? Because the level of competition we saw at the Hockenheimring, of course, the Lausitz Ring, not a circuit that we see overly often in the world of sim racing. Maybe a bit of an unknown for these drivers.
Yeah, I mean, second race is always important, isn't it? With only 4 rounds. If we can kind of get a bit of a change in the pecking order, then we're going to be opening up that championship more and more to the drivers in rounds 3 and rounds 4. But if we're getting more Dreiss domination, then it's likely, you'd say, that we're going to have him trying to then, walk his way towards the title at the Nordschleife and then at the final race.
Well, potentially so. You say Dreiss domination. He only won one of the races. Of course, the other one went to Julian Kunze. There is the calendar. We've completed the M2CS Racing Cup. That was a week ago. We kickstart the middle championship of Season 1 with the M4 GT4 Trophy. We go to the Lausitz Ring, the Nordschleife, then the grand final that the community get themselves to vote for. Of course, on the RaceRoom Discord, there'll be an option of 3 circuits from, we believe, America, Oceania, and Europe. All 3 regions get their vote to what's going to take place, that grand final, which combines all 3 of the fantastic regions, the split one, all vying for the top honours of both the M4 GT4 Trophy and also for that finale cup as well, before we move ourselves into the GT Masters, of course. But that's going to be a story for another day in a few weeks' time. However, ladies and gentlemen, 2 races, 2 fantastic races, I might add, in the books to kickstart the second championship of Season 1 of 2024. My name has been Zach Sweeney. Dara Thacker has been alongside me in the commentary box. We've had Chris, Captain Coffee, bringing you all the action, following all of the action, and making the broadcast look lovely and pretty as well for you all to enjoy at home. Thank you, of course, for watching along on the RaceRoom YouTube channel. Make sure to like, subscribe, turn the bell on, all of that snazzy stuff to make sure you're staying up to date with the RaceRoom Ranked Championship in 2024. We'll see you in a week's time when we head to the Lausitz Ring. It's goodbye for now.